There's a research lab that can predict a marital success 100%. They've had 100% success rate, and they have a video process that they go through and they record and observe your relationship with your spouse. And then they come back and tell you if your marriage is going to work or not. And they're 100% accurate. And you know what they measure?
Well, I know the answer. Do you want me to?
Do you know the answer? Yeah. Do you know
this? Isn't it like the
kindness is the number one ingredient in a happy family, and small acts of kindness and charity absolutely are it. So there's research on that too. But what they're looking for is a statistic. It's a math equation of the number of kind and positive remarks said to one another versus the negative. And so it's a mathematical formula they use, and that's how they predict it.
That's why my marriage has lasted.
There you go.
So much work I put into
so many kind things you've been saying all these years, and you won the math formula.
It's hard.
I think it's interesting though, because people who are negative and say negative things on a regular basis will not probably make it in their marriage and other relationships. But not only that, and I wasn't even going to bring up all this research, but I think it's fascinating that there's also this, I think is incredibly fascinating. So this research was done by a team looking at words and language and positivity and heart disease and the crossover. And they did this massive study where they went in and looked at the internet and pulled messaging. So they ran an algorithm through the your social media channels and looked at word tracks and predicted heart disease per region of the world with 100% accuracy based off language of what was posted on the internet.
Wow. And that is why we have the word. No,
that's exactly
why, but look, we have the word love here. Words matter in language.
Words matter, which also, sorry, but the swearing words are directly associated with heart disease. So if you look at the F word and like some of your other, your swear words, I don't need to tell them. I don't need to repeat them. I don't want to have heart disease. No, people who use them are more prone to heart disease. And so
they're expressing anger and frustration is what comes with those words. That's when you use them, unless you just have a potty mouth and use it as an adjective. But
even still the negative words. Yeah. So your language is definitive of what you're thinking and feeling on the inside. And when you project that is another level of communication that impacts those who are around you, by the way. And it can predict your health outcomes, and it can predict heart disease in the region that you live in. So if you're on the internet and you're posting a lot of negative things, and so the opposite was true too. So if words were posted like love and charity and kindness, like
encouraging people,
the
one posting those encouraging
if you're the ones, then you, exactly. So basically when I talk about region, what I mean is like, let's take, and I'll give you one of the regions that didn't score very well, which was the New York, New Jersey area outside of the New York City area. So they have a statistic of what is their probability for heart disease based upon their region and the people who live in that population. So measuring the words that people used, whether they were negative or positive, when it all pulled back up, matched that statistic perfectly.
Wow. So that edginess of like honking and aggressive driving and things you kind of think of New York City life, there's actually some negative health factors that can be shown.
Yeah. And that's
super interesting.
This podcast is going all over the place, but we're bringing in some social psychology here too, because there's this collective consciousness in the area in which you live where the words you use and the way you behave, we pick it up because we're creatures who want to be accepted by one another. So we tend to pick up word tracks and dress the same and act the same in the area that we live. And so that's why when you pop into an area of the world, you may feel like, oh, I love the vibe of the city, or I don't like the vibe of the city, or I really fit in, or I really don't fit in. And you probably know what I'm talking about if you've done any traveling. And so what you're picking up is that kind of nonverbal vibe. Well, think about it. Nonverbal words you feel inside, words you put outside. It all kind of, comes together to represent something. And I think the message that we take from it is what really matters, which is that this word right here, love, the more that we are engaged in loving thoughts and kindness, and that has to come back to us. So I want to kind of bring back resilience to what goes on inside of here. So there's some things that are important that you need to do coming into your new year. You need to be patient with yourself and really loving toward you. And so another really great exercise would be if you know somebody who's having a really hard time, and imagine writing a letter to them. Just right now, like, think about that. Think of somebody in your life who is having a really hard time, and you were to write a letter. Kind of think of some of the words that you would use right now. Like, you don't have to say them, but like, think about the encouraging words that you would say. Okay. Now, and you can do the same. And now stop for a minute and think, you're having a really hard time and you were to write a letter to yourself. What kind would you use the same words?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would hope so, that you would be as kind to yourself as you would to others. So that self-love is so important.
Yes, it is. And I know this and I teach it, but I will tell you, I have been honest and done this exercise, and I am harder on myself than I am on other people. And in fact, I found myself and I honestly did this exercise just recently. So, and I just did it exactly the way that they asked me to do it without a bias. And I came back and noticed, yes, I have a lot of shoulds, a lot of, you could have done better kind of thinking. There are a lot of reasons why I felt like I should have done better in certain circumstances. We do this as humans, but we don't do it with our friends. We do it for ourselves. And so this sense of self-love and acceptance is really important. So when you look back over your past year, I don't want you to look at it in the way that you might judge yourself, but rather maybe a friend would. Your best friend looking back and saying, good job. Good job, Golly. Woo. You know, approach your year with that kind of self-love and self-acceptance, because that is part of what creates resilience, that bounce back of the rubber band. We need to be able to identify the things that are going well. We need to have that sense of self-value and self-love. We don't want to be in the woulda, shoulda, coulda, and we don't want to use a lot of cognitive biases, like when we are like have all or nothing thinking, where we look back over the year and we think, I did nothing right the entire year. Nothing worked out for me. That's all or nothing thinking. That is a cognitive bias. You don't want to fall into that trap. Or catastrophizing for the new year. That's another cognitive bias, where you're looking at your new year thinking, surely World War III. I mean, it kind of looks that way when you watch the news, but surely I won't even have a house
because it's not even worth it, because everything's going to fail. And
my political candidate wasn't selected this year, therefore the economy will crash. Now that's catastrophizing. And that is a cognitive bias. These are things that get worked out in therapy. When you come out and address these biases, and you want to address them because they impact your ability to be resilient moving forward. We can go through more, but I think that's probably enough therapy for the podcast. I don't know, unless you want more.
That's great. I was thinking as you were saying that oftentimes in school, I remember teachers will say, grade yourself, because probably studies have shown that you'll be harder on yourself often than teachers would when they ask you to grade yourself. So that's another example where that shows up to be true, what you were saying. Okay. Yeah. Super fascinating. I love that. Now, let's go ahead and pivot, and just as we start to wrap this up, let's give some advice now for the new year. And we'll be talking about, I love the new year because I'm a goal setter and I love to dream. It's like one of my favorite things. And the new year is just that perfect time to come up with goals and words and, ideas that you want for the new year. So we'll talk about that in a few, all of January probably, but get us ready for it. Like, let's get us started for that.
So I have a new homework assignment now. There's a lot from this podcast. Don't forget them either. They're good. So do them all. This one is great. This is answering this question: what is the best case possible outcome for your new year? And you can draw it, you can color it, you can make a poster around it. It's a little different than a vision board. A vision board is, you dreaming, but this is a looking at your year and thinking, what is the best case outcome in my 2025? And defining that, and really lining it, underscoring what it looks like. And it works so well. Let me just tell you that it gives you a what we call perspection, and gives you a chance to move your mind into what is going to work and what will work, not what hasn't worked or what has failed for you in the past. So it's a great exercise, and you can marry it with a vision board, that's fine. But best case outcome for your 2025, what would it look like if everything went your way in the current circumstances that you're in with the goals that you have? What does that look like? And define it, and do that before you start all your goal setting. It'll really help you to be in the right mindset.
Yep.